Patrick McCoy, joined by Bernie Flynn and Sheila Vaccaro. Go to item number 2, any comments, suggestions, petitions by residents in attendance regarding items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 3A, the TMAC Bicycle Amenities Grant Application.
Evening, Will Williams, Sustainability Director. This month, the agenda started out really light, so we added some informational things, and this is one of them, and then we ended up adding more to the agenda, so I'll try to get through it quickly. But there's no action item here, but we want to give a little bit of background on something in the works. About 6 weeks ago, TMAC, that's the Transportation Management Association of Chester County, submitted a planning grant to Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, a lot of alphabet soup there. And the premise of that was planning around bicycle amenities and infrastructure, things like bike storage, maintenance stations, and also an educational component, educating cyclists and also other pedestrians and drivers about bicycle safety. And in the application, Westchester Borough was included as a municipality of emphasis because we've done a lot of bike-friendly things in the past, and we obviously have a geography where you really don't need much more than a bike. It's one of the reasons I took the job here, so I don't have to take my car out. So when that application went in, we provided a very generic letter of support, basically saying, we think biking is great, multimodal transportation, sustainable options are great, and we appreciate any and all dollars that could ever come into the Westchester Borough. But we didn't commit to any specific spend or course of work or anything like that. So the plan here is if TMAC is awarded this grant, there'd be a planning process, basically the second half of this year. I had mentioned Westchester was an area of emphasis, but this is really a county-wide project. TMAC works at a county-wide level. And so the thought is to have a planning process in the second half of this year to tee up what would be another grant application led by TMAC, hopefully next year, to actually go out and get real dollars to implement the recommendations of the plan. Again, amenities and an educational component. So some thoughts on what that might look like in Westchester. If you've been up to the Chestnut Street Garage, you'll see a bunch of gray plastic boxes taking up valuable parking spaces. Those were bike lockers installed, I think, when the garage was built originally. Every time I go up there, there's one bike in there. I think someone left it there like 5 years ago. One of the problems is there are physical keys into these things, and we've asked the third party managing the garage to juggle the keys, and it just doesn't work. You can upgrade the locks on them to work on a smartphone now. And there's also a ton up there, and we wanted to redistribute them throughout the borough, maybe some on the university campus, just make it spread out the amenity. Maintenance stations, I mentioned, wayfinding signage about preferred bike routes. There are preferred bike routes in the borough. Those are low stress streets. It also keeps bike traffic to focused areas, and I think that's safer for everyone. And again, digital education campaign. So again, no action necessary at this time. We're just filling in some information because if the planning grant is awarded, we'll probably have a 2023 or possibly 2024 budget ask. That would be very modest, probably $5,000 or less. But we just didn't want that ask to come out of the blue. So again, just providing some information about that project. So any questions?
Are these typically matching grants?
Yes, it would probably be a 10 or 20% matching grant. However, we talked about we could provide a lot of in-kind match, not necessarily cash match, but in-kind through, say if we wanted to move some of those bike boxes, that's something we could handle internally with Public Works, and we could count that hourly rate for each position towards our in-kind match. So while there is a match, it's not necessarily all cash. And again, that would be less than a 5-digit ask.
Tom McAvoy with Uptown Theater. And what we would like to request is all the great blue signs that are around town pointing to like the Historic Society or the hotels. If we could have the Uptown Canower Theater on that list, we get lots of questions about where we are. As you know, our signage is not that great because we're trying to protect the historic character of the theater, so we don't have a big marquee in front. And people who drive by all the time and just think it's an armory when it's really a theater. So it would help us get people to the theater. It'd also be kind of a good marketing boost for us. So our request is if we can put up as many signs that are appropriate for the borough, it would really be helpful.
Separate signs or add, I'm not sure how the signage works now with the wayfinding. So are they combined, hospital this direction, university that direction, and then
I
adding
was thinking
uptown?
that would be the best, but that might be, complicated. So if the borough came back and said, put a separate sign below one of the current signs, that would also be fine.
No, excuse me, it makes sense to do that because it is a architectural find for us. And we have also those big blue signs at different intersections that there's spaces at the bottom of a lot of them that our sign company could actually do a peel and tape and just match it on there and put it on.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that makes sense. Yeah, it's not very expensive either.
All right.
Mr. McAvoy, thank you. Would it be possible to put together a brief paper or proposal that would tell us exactly what you're thinking about, like what improvements would make sense? We can collaborate, we can evaluate it, maybe edit, suggest some improvements, or take it at face value, and then we can put together an implementation plan.
Is this just for the signage like Bernie's talking about?
Yes, correct. I wasn't aware of the details of what the proposal was going to be, but it seems pretty simple at this point.
Yeah, we actually probably would need to know exactly what you want to call it
Right.
and how to spell it,
Okay.
and they could easily be just applied to the signs by the sign guy could just wipe off with alcohol, take the dirt off, and then just re-glue those things right on there.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
but
right,
and
I'll
where
take it.
where you
Something out.
where you think they'd be more beneficial, what intersections?
Well, I'm thinking throughout town, wherever there's a blue sign, to have it there would be great from our standpoint.
Take a walk.
I know there are a lot of blue signs. I don't know where all of them are.
So
good
we have
souvenir.
Nick here. Maybe there's a GIS database of the signage.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll get you something tomorrow. Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Item 3C, duties and responsibilities of the Borough Arborist.
I had that put on there for a specific reason, because our arborist has been going to court to represent the borough at various courthouses. And we found out that our arborist has not been deputied by Borough Council. So that person, our arborist, even though it says in our code, administrative code, that person is supposed to inspect and I forget the exact word, cite the person for doing something wrong. And it didn't turn out very well, the two court cases that I went to, because we found the lawyers were a little bit sharper than we were and found out that he actually wasn't cited, given the permission to write citations. And I asked Al to speak about it tonight, and he fully understands why we need to allow Mike Dunn or the arborist to be able to go out on the job site and if they're doing something wrong, ask them to stop. And if they don't, give them a citation. So, Al?
Basically, what happened was Mike Dunn was issued the violation, went to court, and the attorneys for the defendant basically pointed out that there is nothing in our ordinance that allows him to act on behalf of the borough in court. So he essentially needs the authority, because he's a consultant, he needs to be given the authority by counsel to represent them in court. It's kind of the short version. And
One quick question that doesn't jeopardize anything that he's done prior, I assume?
no, no.
No, what's happened when we went to court and we were sitting there, it was kind of embarrassing because I guess we all just thought that, he was just like the building inspectors when they go out and they write a citation for trash cans and stuff like that, but they are employees, but he is acting as our agent out in the field. And as Mr. Vinatelli said, if he had to go testify about a tree person doing a bad cut or an improper cut, he couldn't do it. So he wouldn't be, so it would be hearsay. So it's, and all citations have to go through the Public Works Director anyway, so that you have the on-site person actually writing the citation and being approved by the Public Works Director.
So the building code, do we have a third-party electrical or mechanical inspector, or is that all done in-house? That doesn't fall under the same issue?
Doesn't fall under the same issue. We have, some of our inspections are indeed contracted with a third party, but Kevin Gore is also certified to do a whole host of inspections. Is Kevin here? I believe that electrical inspection is one thing we do allow applicants to use a third party, or I believe there's one other inspection type that HVAC that we shop out.
They don't need to be deputized in the same way as we're referring to Mr. Dunn?
No, they already are. The building code official already is warranted to cite people under the provisions of the Uniform Construction Code. That's already baked in the administrative sections of that code. So that makes it easy for municipalities to adopt building code enforcement standards that are enforceable. There isn't so much Commonwealth-wide need for that sort of enforcement for trees and arborists, because there aren't that many communities that are doing that, are regulating street trees. So we have to pay attention to our own codes and make them compliant and make sure that they identify who has the role and responsibility to create citations. I think it's better administratively that we empower the arborist to do so, because he or she is the person on the site making the observations and will be most able to testify. And if any of the citations ever get challenged.
So even though the ordinance itself says that the borough arborist responsibility is to enforce the ordinance, it doesn't say that? So do we need to update the ordinance or? Okay.
Correct, you
Got it.
follow. The ordinance says that the chapter is administered and enforced by the department, meaning Department of Public Works, in consultation with the borough arborist or other employees, consultants of the borough. So we need to just stand that the other way around, so that if there's documentation that the arborist is creating and signing a citation, that he or she's legally charged to be able to do that and doesn't get challenged on procedural flaw.
Mr. McCoy, right there beside you on number B, letter B, I mean, it's just, we need to reverse the wording so that the arborist is actually a sworn deputy of the borough.
I guess what we can do is work on that and bring something to council at next month, to this committee first, that you all can look at. It's going to be pretty simple, and then schedule a hearing. Thank you. That's me. We have an item on the finance agenda having to do with the High Street corridor improvements to approve a professional service agreement with traffic planning and design to guide the borough through the rest of preliminary design, which includes bidding management and post-bidding construction management, to get us to the finish line of a fully installed improvement. And that is going to be a professional service agreement of $115,000 that I propose to be funded, will propose to be funded through American Rescue Plan Act funds under our allocation to streets and stormwater, or streets and, forget what the streets and transportation, pardon me. But I wanted to take a little bit of time tonight to describe to Public Works what we're talking about. In 2019, the borough contracted with traffic planning and design to do a concept plan for improvements on High Street, spanning Market Street to Rosedale, improving intersections, adding granite curbing where there is none, brick sidewalks, stormwater features, street trees, traffic calming improvements at the intersections especially, and updated street lights and other sorts of features on the street, like benches and bus stops and trash cans. A basic overhaul of an improvement of the borough streetscape, not unlike what you see today on Gay Street. So this is the next step. We have to start building these things. So obviously doing it all at once would be a very expensive, probably $15 to $20 million endeavor. So we've broken it down into smaller parts. Unfortunately, the parts keep getting a little bit smaller, but that's my job, to make sure we do as much as we can. We work efficiently. I make mention of that just because you want to control design and engineering costs. So you want to be able to do enough of a project so that design and engineering is 15 to 20% of the overall project cost. We're running a little high on this one because we're at a smaller scale of project implementation. But we'll improve our processes to improve that ratio. I'm showing you a concept plan that was delivered to us December last year that shows improvements at both Minor and Barnard Streets with bump outs. Bill, would it be possible to zoom in a little bit? Oh, do I have control? Okay. If you scroll to the south, thank you. There you go. There was this is a preliminary design that we evaluated. Our feedback to traffic planning and design when we got this was, where's the stormwater feature? And you forgot the trees. So, and that's okay. That's how design iteration works. You run it past the committee who has a different point of view on things, and you go back to the drawing board, you make improvements. So TPD has been working on this, and the goal is to get a project bid, to get permits through PennDOT, because this is a state road, and to get the project bid this year. And the reason we want to pay close attention to this capital project, because we have 35 other capital projects we're working on, is that this is a grant-funded capital project through the Chester County Community CRP. I forget my acronyms. I apologize. Apologize to the county. But they're a very big funding partner with us, pledging up to $400,000 at a 3-to-1 match. So we have to provide 25% match. So when you look at these improvements, we came back and the bump outs you see on Minor Street and Barnard Street, those are really important features to have at your intersections in a tight urban area like Westchester, because it does two things. It slows down the velocity of traffic that has to navigate the corner. So the turning radius, that's the circle that would be inside that curve. You want the radius to be really small. You want that curve to be really nice and tight. So if you want to make I'm going to get this wrong because I don't know my one-way streets, but if you wanted to make a right on the Minor heading north on High, and the road was built this way, you'd have to really slow down when you got to Minor Street to make that turn. That's really good thing for everybody, especially people not encased in 2 tons of steel who are crossing the street, who might be older, might be distracted looking at their cell phones, might be pushing a stroller or holding a 4-year-old's hand. The other thing that those bump outs do is they reduce the amount of time it takes you to cross the street. So instead of having to hoof it across a 30-foot wide cartway, you can get across 14 feet in half the time. So again, that's another safety feature. The little bits and this is all incrementalism, a little bits and pieces of safety that you can pick up from better design will pay you dividends for decades to come. And also bump outs, especially we experience them as drivers and as pedestrians on Gay Street, they slow down traffic. So the more you can slow down a car, the better off everybody's going to be, because what we do know with pedestrian and automobile collisions is that the mortality rate increases exponentially with regards to velocity. If a car contacts a pedestrian at 15 miles an hour, chances are they're going to survive. 25 miles an hour, it gets a little dicey. Once you get up to 40 miles an hour, you can forget about it. So it's really important to slow cars down in communities like Westchester. So this is a big, huge public safety improvement. It also recaptures some of that territory that's been allocated to automobile use for other kinds of uses. We can put trash cans in those bump outs. We can put benches, bus stops, stormwater features, extend the root zone of street trees and places for the plants to grow. So I like this investment, this idea a lot. So Westchester did a smart thing when it did the High Street Corridor concept plan. There's a lot of good ideas in there. They need to be refined, improved, and taken to the drawing board and then taken out to bid. The bad news, I guess, in all this is that our dollars aren't going as far as we thought they would. When we came back in December and the improvements you're looking at the 2 intersections ranged above $800,000. And I said, that's going to be a problem. We don't have that money in the budget. The grant's only for $400. What can you get done for the grant dollars? And that decision led us to focus on Minor Street and to move forward with the project because we want to keep our grantor happy. One of the things about grant writing, grant project implementation is you want to keep your grantors happy so that they know you have the organizational capacity and ability to deliver on projects, give them things to show value in the grant program they're doing, and also the next time you apply, they're going to be more likely to give you money. So we wanted to focus on bringing this project to market as quickly as possible with the best design possible. So we're focusing just on the Minor Street bump outs, crossings, a little bit of stormwater improvement in those areas, and some signal relocation. And we're going to focus on designing that and creating a bid package to go out this year. And the rest of the design work, we're going to continue to focus on as funds are available and keep moving our way south down High Street and come up with really good improvements. I want to have more conversations with TPD about the qualitative aspects of their designs, get more stormwater included, street trees. If you know, I think we need to think creatively too, because as you get south of Barnard Street on the west side of the street, we have the convenience store there. And that is a problem because you have a lot, it's sort of like, you know, automobile rodeo. You can come in and you have cars traversing the pedestrian space that in an unorganized fashion, and you don't want that, especially at the velocity that design invites the cars to enter and exit that area. So that's a dangerous piece of the roadway. we're looking at crash data when we're looking at these improvements as well. So this is the kind of stuff I really like to do and why I'm happy to be here in Westchester, these kinds of small scale pedestrian improvements in a dense urban setting. And really look forward to having more conversations with the council and the committee about these kinds of projects. I want to see more of this get done in the borough.
Thanks, Ed. It's great background. I really appreciate the history and why this makes sense. A couple of questions. First one, relative to the grant money. So I think you said 450, is that the maximum for this particular grant?
The county has pledged 400,000 with a 3-to-1 match. So in order to get 400,000, we'd have to spend 533, right, Keith?
So, and that pledge is based on, was it there an application process or
Yeah,
how do we
there-
get more of it, I guess is where I'm going with it.
Exactly. It's a good question. How do we get more of it? We create a habit and a process whereby we have available projects that are at least as far as a standard we set. And I think you need to be somewhere in the preliminary design phase to be able to go to a grantor and say, hey, this is what we think we're doing. And we've got it partially designed, maybe not fully designed yet. I think you have to design something to know how much it's going to cost. At least start. You can't go to a grantor and say, oh, I think it's going to be $1 million, not really sure. You have to do some diligence. And, Will and I will talk more about this, but that's my feeling on it. So you have to have a nice stable of projects that you can pull from and then plug into your normal grant cycle. You can't also do everything and apply for everything because there's local bandwidth issues to project implementation. We're feeling that out right now. We actually had a conversation today at Pannoni, who is the borough engineer, about project delivery and some of their additional services they could provide in terms of grant writing for the borough. Maybe that makes sense for the borough to engage Pannoni to help us with that, help organize that process. I don't know if that's the right decision yet, but going out for funding partnerships should be the normal way of bringing projects to the borough to fruition, and it should be done according to a plan. And we're not going to get every grant, and we're not going to be able to manage more than we can manage. So that's my view on it. I don't have
Great.
specifics.
No, thanks. And hopefully we can take that philosophy for the permanent design for Gay Street closure and get some funding for that. Thank you. I don't have any further questions. Comments?
Darrell Cook, South Walnut Street. With that design, is East Minor Street restricted to one lane with no turning lanes?
That's a very good question. And if I had total recall of every street in the borough off the top of my head, I would be able to answer that right. But
So one other question that goes. with
By
that.
putting those bump outs in, you actually have 2.5 lanes there, East Minor Street, because you have one guy, people can go south, people can go straight, and then the people that are going to go north, kind of like cheat a lot, because they got to beat the light. So that'll be pinching the left turn lane, definitely going south.
So, but one question to go along with that, and I realize it's just a conceptual preliminary design, but does it prevent delivery trucks? I mean, is there going to be a problem with anything related to that? I mean, do the bump outs restrict the radius to regular passenger vehicles?
I think you'd be challenged to get a 53-foot trailer around any intersection in the borough. Well, I'll ask about turning templates, which truck design can make that turn.
Just again,
Certainly think a
Amazon
box truck can
trucks,
do it.
that
Yeah.
kind of not necessarily 18-wheelers.
But yeah, sometimes 18-wheelers have to get down a small street if someone's moving. I've seen that happen too.
The only thing we got to make sure is that we reinforce the stone underneath, because I can tell you, I live on an alley, and the trash trucks just drive right over my sidewalk all the time because they can't make the turn. Not our borough trash trucks, it's the ones from the red one and the green ones, whatever they are, because they can't make the turn. So it's, our trash trucks go straight. They don't make those turns. So.
All right, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Sir?
And when he does make the turn, no matter what time he's coming down my alley, all I hear is honk, honk, just to let him know that he was there. Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
I just want to say, I think that these bump outs are a wonderful thing for the borough. I think encouraging more pedestrian activity is always a good thing in the kind of living situation we are in. We want more people, we want more traffic, we want foot traffic. Making the people as comfortable, if not more comfortable than the cars, should be the priority. And I think that this helps move it, very gently in a positive direction.
There is a solution, because we have them up on Gay Street. They're breakaway ballards that look very, very nice. They're decorative ballards up and down Gay Street. And when they did the streetscapes, when Tom committed to the streetscapes, they put decorative ballards. And because PennDOT rules, I wanted to put a solid ballard in there, because if you hit it, your car doesn't move. But these are breakaway ballards that just snap, then of course, then we get an insurance claim. But we could stop trucks from going around those bump outs by putting beautiful decorating ballards right, on, not those yellow poles. They're beautiful, ornate, ballards. So, yeah.
Yes, Al Venatelli with Public Works. This is the second year which we put out the bid with the consortium bid, and that consortium is West Goshen Township, East Goshen, West Town, and Euclid Township. And basically what happens is we all submit our quantities, and we put out one bid to the contractors to go out, and the winning bid gets all 5 municipalities essentially. And the low bidder, again, was Alpha Space Control, who did our line striping last year. We bid it in two ways. The base bid is the standard normal paint. Doesn't last as long, and it's obviously, you can see, is much cheaper. The other way we bid it, and this is what we did last year, was the hot thermoplastic as the alternate bid. Last year, what we awarded was only the long line striping, which is the 4-inch double yellow line and the 6-inch single white line. We actually did the stop bars in-house. We did that. The Public Works Department has a paint machine, and we did the stop bars manually in-house to save some money. Those are actually end up being quite expensive. You could see that 857 lineal feet of stop bar with the hot thermoplastic paint was almost $8,600. So what I'm requesting is to award the alternate bid items 1 and 2, and once again have Public Works do the stop bars. So the bid that we would be awarding is for $15,444.
Thank you. Comments, questions? Yeah, I think it makes sense if they last twice as long at least to go with the hot thermoplastic, so. Questions? That looks like a 3-0.
Thank you.
And final item, 4B, to approve the April 2022 meeting minutes. Any comments, questions? Thank you. Number 5, any other business to discuss?
Mr. McCoy, last meeting, Public Works meeting, we had a resident come and was inquiring about a street tree and repair to her pavement at 412 Dean Street. And I told council that I would go down there and take a look at it and report back to the resident as well as the tree commission. And the tree that is on her property is in, as far as I can tell, perfectly healthy. And she's going to be requested just to level out her bricks and make the brick smooth because it's almost because of the years of the water running around. You know, she has swales in her brick walk. So she has to take the bricks up and then relay the bricks so they're safe. The way it is now, it's a tripping hazard. So I did notify the resident by an email, and she's called Public Works and also Building and Housing. So that's where it sits.
Mr. Flynn, thank you for doing that. Appreciate it. Thanks for reporting back. Any other business? Okay, seeing as none, we are adjourned. It is 6:43.